Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing okay. A little bit tired, but I'm excited about getting the last episode for the Eye of the World done tonight.
Me too. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that our Q&A episode is next week. So tweet or email us your questions, and we'll be wrapping up the Eye of the World. Also, say it with me, y'all. This is a reread. We assume that you've read the whole series, and there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today, we will discuss chapters 52 and 53, which end the Eye of the World. We'll be looking at the aftermath of Rand's big showdown and setting up for where we go from here. Let's start with chapter 52, which is called There is Neither Beginning Nor End, and we have a leaf icon.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Rand slowly regains consciousness, dazed and confused. He realizes that he is laying in the oily ashes that had once been Agenor and throws up. Delirious, he laughs to himself that Shaitan is dead. He remembers Egwene and clumsily stumbles back down the hill to where he last saw her, still in a fog. When he gets back to the clearing, half filled now by the great oak marking the Green Man's grave, he finds Egwene with Nynaeve and Moraine. The Aes Sedai is looking a little worse for the wear, but all three women are okay. Rand tries to tell them that everything is okay now because Shaitan is dead, but Moraine interrupts him and says that they should still say the Dark One, or Baalzamon at least. And Rand is like, whatever, don't bother me none, because I killed him dead. And then he remembers that he wielded the One Power, and the memory of it all comes crashing back to him. He's a man that can channel, and he's going to go mad and die. He reaches out to Egwene, and she flinches away from him. She quickly changes her mind, however, and flings her arms around him, tearfully apologizing and telling him that it's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. Moraine demands to know what happened, and Rand tells the whole story. He tells her that it was the light pulling him along, that it wasn't really him, and asks if that makes a difference. Moraine tells him that she had suspicions because he'd been able to resist a bit of the coin bond, and because Bella hadn't needed her healing at Watch Hill. He asks if he doesn't do it again, can he avoid going mad? And she says perhaps. What he really needs is someone who can teach him, but anyone who could is 3,000 years dead. He asks if she could teach him, but she explains that she knows nothing of Sidon. Rand asks after the others, and Nynaeve explains that they went back to the cavern. The eye is gone, but there's something that has been uncovered in the middle of where the pool was. Moraine tells him that she had to tell Lan, and because the girls are also channelers, they should know. But it's up to Rand if he wants to tell the others. Rand wants to know if Moraine is going to take him to Tar-Valon to be gentled, and she tells him that he is Ta'veren, and perhaps the pattern is not finished with him. Rand tells Moraine that Baalzamon warned him that the White Tower may try to use him as a false dragon, and he won't be used. She responds that he's a fool for trusting the father of lies, but he insists that he won't be used. Before they can get into a proper argument, the others return. Lan is banged up, walking stiffly with one of Nynaeve's bandages wrapped around his temples. Loyal is carrying a large, ornate chest, Perrin a bundle of cloth, and Mat had what looks like pieces of broken pottery. They are happy to see Rand alive and ask what happened to him. Rand lies and tells them that he fell down a hill and hit his head on a rock. It seems like a dumb lie, but they buy the story. Moraine examines what they brought back, starting with the fragments of pottery. She laid the pieces out on the ground in front of her, and they formed a perfect circle, the ancient symbol of Aes Sedai. She hands her belt knife to Lan, who separates out the largest piece and slams the knife down as hard as he can into it. The blade snaps off without a mark on the fragment. Moraine explains that it's Quendiar, Heartstone, completely unbreakable, even with the One Power. Mat asks the obvious question, and Moraine tells them that this was one of the 7 seals on the Dark One's prison. She next opens the chest and lifts out a curled golden horn marked with a line of silver script of Old Tongue inlaid around the mouth of the bell. Loyal translates, "The grave is no bar to my call," and they realize that it is the Horn of Valair, meant to summon the heroes of the ages back from the dead to fight the Dark One. Moraine wonders if the Eye of the World was made for the use to which they put it, or specifically to guard these things. If all that wasn't enough, the final item is revealed to be the banner of the dragon. Moraine needs to know more, but she's in no state to travel. They must rest the night in what's left of the Green Man's garden. The Green Man had held back the blight, but already the blight was killing what he had made. Rand asks if it is finished, and Moraine responds, "We have done what we came here to do. From here you may live your life as the pattern weaves. Eat, then sleep, Rand al'Thor. Sleep and dream of home."
The description of Rand waking up and the horror that he finds himself in is so chilling. Like,
Yeah, and gross.
we know Jordan served in Vietnam, and he spoke very little of his time and experience there, but he definitely saw some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Those experiences probably helped him write scenes like this in a way that just feels so real, at least to me.
Okay.
So Rand is out of it as he uses the name of the Dark One, and he laughs as the ground shakes. Like, using the name Shaitan has real consequences in this world.
Yeah.
He still has a hold on the world and is not dead, but Rand is just too out of it to realize it. And I get it. Like, he just fought who he thought was the Dark One and won. So, of course, he thinks the Dark One is dead. Sorry to break it to you, Rand. You got a long way to go yet.
Yeah. When Rand comes up on the women, he sees that Nynaeve has haunted eyes, and later thinks that the Wisdom's eyes were old, ancient in her young face. Moraine is lying outstretched in a tattered dress with charred spots and tears. He thinks that she looked as if she'd been a long time ill or hard used, and she needs Nynaeve and Egwene to help her sit up and later to lie back down. And we'll see in the next chapter that she has to be carried out on a litter because she's too weak to ride.
Yeah.
And even a week later, she still needs rest and healing. She's taken a beating for sure.
Yeah.
They both have some healing to do, mentally and physically, from this experience. But Egwene's fine, though.
Yeah, which is interesting. Because Rand tackles her.
Yeah, to stop her from fighting with the Forsaken. So she actually didn't really do much.
Yeah. It's
Which is
interesting.
fine.
It's fine.
No big deal. But yeah, Nynaeve and Moraine really got beat up.
Pretty bad. Moraine says that Agonar and Bathamal must have been trapped near the surface, and the seals on the Dark One's prison are weakening. So that's how they were able to get out.
Right.
She's so sure that no more Forsaken are loose, though. But we've said this before. Jordan's characters are wrong all of the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So even authority figures like Moraine, who you expect to be right, get things very wrong. You always have to take what characters say with a grain of salt, sometimes a large spoonful.
A whole basket. So let's talk about the way the girls react to Rand being able to channel.
Okay.
Egwene flinches away from Rand, then, quote, abruptly she flung her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. "I'm sorry, Rand, I'm sorry. I don't care. Truly, I don't." Her shoulders shook. He thought she was crying. Awkwardly patting her hair, he looked at the other two women over the top of her head. "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills," Nynaeve said slowly. "But you are still Rand al'Thor of Emond's Field. But the light help me. The light help us all. You are too dangerous, Rand." He flinched from the Wisdom's eyes, sad, regretting, and already accepting loss. So I think Nynaeve's reaction is especially sad.
Yeah.
She's so torn between her loyalty to an Emond's Fielder and her knowledge that Rand is unquestionably dangerous.
Right.
You know, male channelers are like rabid dogs in this world. They are just as likely to kill everyone around them as to kill themselves. At this point, Egwene and Nynaeve don't know that Rand is the dragon, just that he can channel. So Rand is a ticking bomb, and he could very easily take out anyone near him. The danger is real, and Nynaeve's reaction makes it super clear. Eventually, of course, her loyalty wins out because it's Nynaeve. But this initial reaction is painful.
Yeah, and we've seen Nynaeve face painful decisions in this book before.
Right.
And not really flinch at it. And so I could not imagine what it'd be like to be in her shoes right now.
Right. Because, I mean, her whole purpose of being there is to protect the Evans Fielders.
Yep.
You know, and she can't protect Rand from this, you know?
Right. Not like she can do other things.
Yeah, and where it says that in the Wisdom's eyes, she's already accepting loss.
Yeah.
You know, like she has to feel like she's losing Rand. Like there's nothing she can do for him. And that is just, it's so sad.
I can remember the first time I read through the series and I got through this, like I really kind of resented Nynaeve, like in this moment of like, how dare she turn her back on Rand?
Uh-huh.
But like after reading the whole series multiple times now, it's like we know that that's not what Nynaeve hasn't. This is not Nynaeve giving up. This is Nynaeve grieving.
Yeah.
It's a very different kind of thing.
Right. Well, and she has very limited information at this
Right.
point. You know, I mean, she doesn't know any man that can channel, obviously. And
Not
she's
yet.
only ever been taught that they go mad and they die. And if you're lucky, that's all that happens. Usually they take you out with them. You know, like they lash out. And, you know, it just... basically, Rand is suddenly thermonuclear. As far as she knows, Rand is too dangerous to be around. Like he
Right.
won't be able to help himself. It's just gonna kind of, the danger is gonna lash out of him. And so what do you do in that situation? You know, even though she cares about him and she wants to protect him and she wants to be loyal to him, I mean, how do you do that? Like,
Well,
how do you stay loyal to someone who is that dangerous?
Well, and I think the other part of it is that this is the same Nynaeve who we saw in the very first couple chapters of this book having to do triage. Like, she's going to protect Rand, but she's also got to protect...
She also knows how sometimes it's necessary to cut your losses.
And I think that's what we're really seeing shine through here.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, she's trying to make that decision of, is this damage too much to be fixed or healed? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't think about it in those terms, but that makes sense.
Rand says that it wasn't really him that channeled. He says, the light pulled me along. It wasn't really me. Doesn't that make a difference? I really feel for Rand here. He knows that he channeled, and he's looking for any possible way to say that it wasn't him who did it. It's not what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would too. I mean, he basically knows that if he channels, then he's going to go insane and all this other stuff. I would be looking for any possible excuse to say, no, it wasn't me. The light did it all on its own.
Yeah. Moraine tells Rand that there is a vast amount of the one power in the eye. Even in the Age of Legends, few could have channeled so much unaided without being destroyed. Very few. So this is our first clue about how strong Rand is.
Yeah.
Even as a fledgling channeler who has no idea what he's doing, he's still able to channel all of the power from the eye without burning himself up. Whereas we just saw Agenor, one of the Forsaken, one of the stronger Forsaken,
Yep.
pulled too much of the power and literally burned himself
to
up.
a crisp.
So Rand is crazy strong. And I don't think we really understand that until much later. But this is our first inkling of, no, you guys, Rand is super strong.
Like, I think it took me like 2 or 3 rereads to come back to this and realize that like, I thought maybe like originally Agenor got destroyed as part of the fight, but I later realized that no, he just burns himself out.
Yeah, he channels too much of the power and he can't handle it. Which means, you know, Rand is that much stronger than one of the
Yes.
strongest Forsaken. I mean, Moraine said that Agenor wasn't that far behind Lews Therin and Ishmael.
Correct.
So, I mean, he's up there in power. And Rand is like, nah, bitch, I'll show you how it goes.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Only, you know, not. Rand wants to know why Moraine isn't trying to gentle him. And she responds with, quote, "You are Tavren. Perhaps the pattern has not finished with you." Which is the most Aes Sedai answer ever.
Yeah.
She's definitely dancing with the truth here. After Rand tells her his story and it's confirmed that he's the Chandler, she knows that he's the Dragon Reborn.
Right.
That's why she's not taking him to be gentled. But, of course, she's not going to say that because he's already freaking out.
Just a little bit.
There's no way that he could take in that information. And then he goes straight to, in the dreams, Bowsman said Tarvalon and the Amberlin Seat would try to use me. And we've mentioned before that this really sticks with him throughout the series.
Yep.
He says, I won't be used. I'm not a tool you can throw on the midden heap when it's worn out. And I love Moiraine's response. She says, a tool made for a purpose is not demeaned by being used for that purpose. Moiraine's voice was as harsh as his own, but a man who believes the father of lies demeans himself. You say you will not be used, and then you let the Dark One set your path like a hound sent after a rabbit by his master.
Yeah.
That's just really good.
It's really great advice. Because, all right. So I read this when I was much younger than I am now.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of advice that I totally needed to hit into my head again and again and again. Like, just because you don't want to be controlled, just because you don't want people to make decisions for you, is not a good reason to then go out and make horrible decisions. Like, you can let yourself be influenced by things just because they're the opposite of the thing trying to pull you away.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. She's like, you don't want to trust me, fine, but don't trust the father of lies who
right
is messed up. Like
you
use some common sense.
Don't trust me. That's a valid decision. Trust the Dark One. That's not a valid. That's a bad idea, right?
Yeah, it's like, don't be so stubborn that you're going to run into a known danger. Like, come on, man. Everyone else comes back from the cavern,
right?
And I really like Matt's reaction when he sees Rand. He says, so you're alive after all, Matt laughed. His face darkened and he jerked his head at Moiraine. She wouldn't let us look for you. Said we had to find out what the eye was hiding. I'd have gone anyway, but not even Egwene sided with her and almost threw me through the arch. I mean, this says all you need to know about Matt.
And I kind of actually want to see Nynaeve throw Matt through the arch a little bit, like maybe grab him by the ear and like, go, 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 go. And like, yeah.
Kind of kick him in the pants.
Yeah.
And then Perrin also has a very Perrin response. He says, that's the important thing. You're here, and we're done with what we came for, whatever it was. Moiraine Sedai says we're done, and we can go. Home, Rand. Like, burn me, but I want to go home. So I'm surprised that Moiraine would have told them that they could go home. I mean, I guess it's possible that she said that to Perrin, thinking that the pattern might be done with Matt and Perrin, but she knows Rand can't go home.
That's very true.
So, like, I'm wondering if she actually said that or that's just Perrin's interpretation of what she might have said.
I think the first thing that you said is more likely. I think she told Perrin and Matt possibly, but definitely Perrin. The words probably came out of her mouth that he could go home, and then he interpreted it as all three of them.
Right, because she definitely underestimates the whole Tavern thing.
She really does.
And then Lan for the win. Quote, good to see you alive, sheepherder, Lan said gruffly. I see you hung onto your sword. Maybe you'll learn to use it now. Rand felt a sudden burst of affection for the warder. Lan knew, but on the surface at least, nothing had changed. He thought that perhaps for Lan, nothing had changed inside either. So I'm not going to say that Lan's a teddy bear, because he's not.
No.
But sometimes he gets it really, really right.
Yeah.
This just fills my heart. I love the relationship that Lan develops with Rand. He's one of the few people who never flinches in reaction to Rand being the dragon.
Yep.
He never treats Rand any differently. And that makes their relationship special.
Yeah. And there's no other relationship like it that he's going to get in the series.
Yeah. I mean, Lan really does become a mentor for Rand. And a friend,
Yeah.
And like a different kind of friend than like Matt and Perrin. Because Matt and Perrin grew up with Rand.
Yeah.
It's like a childhood friendship is a lot different than a friend you make as an adult. And I think the relationship that Rand and Lan have is an adult friendship where it's less about nostalgia and the trouble we got into as youths, and it's more about kind of a mutual respect.
Yeah.
I do think that Lan learns to respect Rand as, maybe not an equal, but kind of.
Well, definitely as a man. Like
Yeah, that's what I mean. As a man, yeah.
Like Lan sees Rand grow up and fill the shoes of a man, and he understands all of those Borderlands sayings of duty being like a feather or a mountain. I'm going to screw that up, but the idea is that like all those ideas of this is what you're supposed to do as a protector. This is what you're supposed to do as, the one who's going to be the dragon, who's going to be basically this massive king of the whole world. You're going to do it right. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think Lan really respects him for that.
Yeah. I really enjoy the relationship they have, especially at the beginning of the next book, The Great Hunt, where they're practicing the swords and they're broing out, and then when Rand gets summoned to see Swan,
yes,
Lan's like prepping him. It's just really cute.
It's totally being the wingman. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the Eye of the World has a couple toy surprises inside.
Yay!
These objects were kept safe for the day the eye would be used. We get one of the seals from the Dark One's prison, the Horn of Valair, and the Dragon Banner. Mm-hmm. I love that Perrin's reaction to Moraine saying that now that they have the horn, they have to take it to Ilion. He basically is like, we're already so far from home.
I know. All Perrin wants to do is go home.
He really does. He just wants to go back to the Two Rivers and go back to the forge and make some horseshoes and just go back to the simple life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Poor guy.
So, okay, let's talk about this whole scene with the horn. Loyal is reverently reading the script on the horn. Uh-huh. The grave is no bar to my call. Then we have Lan's reaction. The Horn of Valair. For once the warder appeared truly shaken. There was a touch of awe in his voice. At the same time, Nynaeve said in a shaky voice, to call the heroes of the ages back from the dead to fight the Dark One. And then we get Matt's reaction. Burn me, he breathed. If you haven't caught on yet, that's Jordan's euphemism for the F word in the Wheel of Time. So whenever someone says burn me or the flamin' something or other, they're cursing. Yes. Everyone is in awe and reverential in this scene. And then Matt, inappropriate as ever, is like, well, F me.
I love it.
Me too. He says it again when they pull out the dragon banner. And for once, Nynaeve was too distracted to calm down for his foul language.
Yeah.
I love it because we could really use some comic relief. And that's Matt's role.
Basic, especially in this early book, yeah.
We get this question about the eye. I began to wonder, Moraine said. The eye of the world was made against the greatest need the world would ever face. But was it made for the use to which we put it, or to guard these things? So I don't know the answer, but it seems like maybe the eye was made to start the Dragon Reborn off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Like, one, there's a crap ton of pure sit-in. Two, the dragon banner is in there so that he can proclaim himself as the dragon publicly. Three, the horn to call the heroes to help him fight the Dark One at the last battle. And four, we get a seal from the Dark One's prison, either as a hint for what's to come, or else they just figured he'd need it. It's like a Dragon Reborn starter kit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think that I think pretty much everything you're saying here is right. Mm-hmm. Like the dragon would need to be able to touch Sodin, but pure Sodin, to know what it's actually like. Because later, Rand's going to start touching the source, and it's not going to feel right.
Right, yeah.
Like, he's going to recognize the evil taint of the Dark One on the power right away. It's going to make him sick. Mm-hmm. But in this particular case, he doesn't feel that. So he knows what's possible if that taint isn't there. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something that's really important for the Dragon Reborn to know. And what you mentioned about the seal, the last thing that comes out, mm-hmm. I don't know if it's, I don't know why it's there. I do like your idea that it's there because he needs to know what's going to come. And it took me several rereads to actually realize that in the very beginning, the very first book, that broken seal is there mm-hmm. with Rand's first experience with the power. Because later he's actually going to have to decide that he's going to have to break all the seals.
Right. No, I mean, I don't know if they knew that when they made the Eye of the World. I have no idea if they would have known or not. But I mean, I'm sure they figured, I mean, even if they didn't know, they probably figured if anyone should have this seal, it would probably be the Dragon Reborn.
Right. Hopefully it's not the last one.
Right?
Yeah.
But if it is, we know where it is.
Too bad it was broken when we got here. Yeah. So, and that's
the thing. We don't know if it was broken when the eye was made. It probably wasn't broken.
You know, that's an interesting theory. What if this is the seal that was supposed to hold Ishmael?
Ooh. That just came off the top of your head. I can tell.
Sure did.
But I like it.
I have no way to support that. I have no way to back that up. But wouldn't that be cool?
That is really interesting. That's why he wasn't bound all the way, because the seal was broken.
And hidden in the eye of the world.
I like that a lot. Yeah, see, and that's the question. It's like, well, was the seal already broken when they made the eye? I'm assuming not. And then at what point did it get broken?
Interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, we have no way of knowing. This is just speculation, but I like that idea.
But yes, totally the Dragon Reborn starter kit, ready to go.
Right? Yeah. And then again, Moraine's answer when Rand asked if it's all over is Aes Sedai dancing with the truth. She tells him that he may live his life as the pattern weaves. But she knows that the pattern is not done with him.
Nope.
If she was being completely honest, she would have told him, no, it's just the beginning. We give Rand a lot of flack for being so difficult all the time. And he definitely makes things harder than they need to be. But it makes perfect sense why he takes so long to trust Moraine.
Yeah.
She's always giving him half-truths and trying to manipulate him. If she wasn't so secretive and wasn't always playing the game of houses, if she would just sit down and have an honest conversation with him for once, I think he would have come around earlier. But all this game playing really screws them both over.
I definitely agree with you. She should have had a true sit down with him. I don't know if right now would have been the time to do that.
Probably not right this second.
Because they're all a little frazzled.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree that at some point she should have just had a very frank conversation with him.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, she didn't necessarily have to sit down with him in this moment, but she needs to stop dancing with the truth.
Yeah.
You know, even if she just says, no, Rand, it's not over, and we should talk about that, but now's not the time. You need to get somewhere. I mean, they're stuck in the blight. What's he going to do? Just take off? You know,
yeah,
he's sort of stuck there, so it's not like he's going to run away. She has time to talk to him later, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not her way. And, okay, I get that, but it didn't have to be this hard, you know?
Yeah, but then he wouldn't be Rand, and we wouldn't have this 14-book series.
True. Very true.
And that brings us to the end of Chapter 52. Before we get to Chapter 53, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by rolling around in the ashes of your vanquished enemies. That's just, wow. Back to the show.
Chapter 53 is called The Wheel Turns, and the icon is the Wheel of Time.
They wake to devastation in the Green Man's garden, the blight, an ever-invading force. Loyal says that it is not right to let the tree that marks the Green Man's grave fall to the blight, and he won't stand for it. Kneeling before the great oak, Loyal begins to sing his tree song. Rand isn't sure how long the song lasted, but when he was done, Loyal says that this little space, at least, is safe from the blight. They start their journey back to Faldara, Moraine being carried on a litter between Bella and Eldib. Rand expects to have to fight their way out like they had to fight their way in, but the blight is quiet. When Perrin asks why it's so different, Moraine explains that they dealt the Dark One a mighty blow. Matt asks how exactly they did that, and Moraine dodges the question, like she does. As they reach the Blight border, they can see signs of spring that had been so long held back. The guards in the watchtowers greet them, thrilled that winter has finally ended and celebrating the victory over the shadow at Tarwin's Gap. When they reach Valdara, the city is ringing with celebration. The gates stand wide open, and soldiers return from the Gap are running through the streets, laughing and singing. The only sour face they see is Ingtar's, who is upset that he missed all the action. Moraine demands to have her litter brought to see Egilmar. The Lord of Valdara seems troubled. While the men are saying that the victory in Tarwin's Gap was a miracle of the light, where the earth swallowed up the shadow spawn and the mountains buried them, but Egilmar swears he saw a man, and what he did must not be. He asks about the Blight, and Moraine tells him that they won, but the Green Man is dead. She tells him that the last battle has not yet been fought. She shows him the horn of Ilair, and Egilmar wants to use it to strike at the shadow immediately, but Moraine tells him no. The horn must be brought to Ilion. Egilmar reluctantly agrees. A week later, the city is still celebrating, and Rand and Lan are practicing the sword forms. When they're done, Rand tells Lan that he's leaving soon and asks if he or Moraine will try to stop him. Lan says no, and then excuses himself when he spots Egwene. Rand tells her that he is going away, and she tells him that she is sure Moraine won't like that. Rand is a little bitter, saying that Moraine has been avoiding him, and she doesn't care what he does anymore. Egwene tries to get him to agree to go to Tar Valon with her, but he doesn't want to risk being caught and gentled. His plan is to never touch the source again, but he never intended to do any of the channeling he's already done, so he questions if he can stop himself. She asks if he's going home, but he doesn't want to hurt anyone, so he says that he can't ever go back home. In Egilmar's private garden, Moraine is using the small gem she sometimes wore in her hair to listen in on Rand and Egwene. The prophecies will be fulfilled, the Aes Sedai whispered. The dragon is reborn.
So loyal for the win. He sings over the grave of the Green Man, and the tree song works a kind of magic that makes the tree resist the power of the Blight, trying to corrupt it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the leaves are greener, the flowers stand up straight. It's such a touching piece of writing here. Like it's such a moving scene that it makes Lan speak up, which he does so rarely, and he says, "You're a good man, Ogier." I just love this whole scene.
Yeah, it's really good. So Rand gets really lost in Loyal's tree singing, and I wonder if that's because Luz Theron had the voice. So even though Rand isn't experiencing a lot of the bleed through yet, there might be some recognition of the song or some resonance within Rand.
You know, I had never put those two together until you brought it up. Like, I hadn't even realized that when Rand experiences the song, he kind of gets pulled out of it and kind of gets lost, like you said.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, I'd never connected those two together, that Lewis Theron was also had the voice and can do the sing, and they're basically the same person. That's a really great insight.
I mean, we don't get a point of view from any of the others during the tree song,
right?
So I don't know if it has the same effect on the others, but it certainly has a pretty profound effect on Rand. And I think he witnesses tree song in the future as well, and it always has sort of a resonance or a effect on him.
Interesting. That's really cool.
I don't know. It's a theory. It's interesting. So I love when Moraine says that they struck a mighty blow at the Dark One and that the shadow will be a long time recovering. Matt is like, how though? What did we do? And Moraine just ignores the question. But Matt, Perrin, and Loyal never do get the story of what actually happened, I don't think. So they have no idea what's going on with all this.
Yeah, they basically kind of have to piece it together later on, but they never get it explained by Rand. They never get it explained by Moraine.
Well, the Eye of the World never comes up again, so
right.
I wonder if they ever do actually even piece it together, or just if they're just like, well, who knows? The Aes Sedai said it was fine.
We don't really get a moment where we see that happen, but I like to think that they do piece it together, because in the next book, Rand fights someone else in the sky. And it's,
right.
I'm fairly certain once they realize that he's the Dragon Reborn, if they think back to this, they're like, oh, that makes sense.
Maybe.
But we never see it on screen, so to speak. So, but I like to think that they do put it together.
Yeah. Maybe. So Egilmar is having a hard time trying to figure out what happened at Tarwin's Gap. He says, Moraine said men say many things about what happened in the Gap, that the light took on flesh and fought for us, that the Creator walked in the Gap to strike at the shadow. But I saw a man, Moraine said I saw a man, and what he did cannot be, must not be. And Moraine just gives her pat non-answer of the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. I guess that's Moraine speak for shit happens, dude.
Right? Like, okay. Yes, Algamar is not jazzed about the victory, or at least not as jazzed as everybody else is. Because he actually understands the gravity of the situation. Like, a man channeled. And he channeled so much power that he decimated the oncoming horde of the dark forces. I bet he's doing the math and wondering how bad it would be if this man goes insane.
Right.
Like, we're talking another breaking of the world, possibly. And at least that's the way I read this. And Moraine's comment is of no comfort to him.
No, not at all. Moraine tells Egilmar that the last battle has not been fought, and Rand is about to argue, but she silences him with a look. I'm trying to put myself in Rand's shoes to figure out how he can think that he already defeated the Dark One. I mean, I know that he had a harrowing experience, but does he really think that the last battle would be that easy? I mean, he knows the stories, right? Like, he didn't have a ton of experience with Gleeman, but he read books and he had enough experience with a Gleeman that they could like shout out their favorite stories.
Right.
So he knows the stories of like the last battle and the end times and whatever. And none of them have happened yet. So, I mean, does he really think some kid from the middle of nowhere, a farmer with no training in the power and barely any in the sword, could defeat the Dark One just like that, almost by accident? I mean, talk about arrogance.
Well, he is a 20-year-old boy.
Right. I guess arrogance is by definition what happens.
I mean, I can remember back in my very early 20s. I mean, I was invincible. I could do anything. And so there's part of that. But at the same time, like, he's been going this whole time thinking, he's been gaslighted by Beelzemon thinking that he's the actual Dark One. And he thinks that he killed him. So I can see where he is, because the alternative is that he's a channeler and he's going to go insane.
But he's going to anyway.
But at least he's going to go insane having killed the Dark One.
I guess. I don't know. I just feel like it's asinine to think it would be that easy.
I agree, but stupid boys.
Yeah.
So we end the story with Rand admitting to Egwene that he can never go home because he's too dangerous to the people that he loves. And even though we see his temptation to return at various points in the series, he never does go home. Mm-hmm. I'm a little conflicted about the final scene that we have with Rand at the end. Mm-hmm. Rand comes off as a little bit whiny.
Yeah, he really does.
He just camps out in Faldara learning the sword of the land, spinning his wheels. Like, shouldn't he be off to a steading with Loyal or something? Like, I like seeing heroes struggle with their circumstance. Mm-hmm. But I don't like seeing Rand do nothing about his circumstance. He's just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, in general, Rand hails from the land of denial in this chapter.
True.
I mean, Moraine has already explained that channelers can't help themselves. They will channel. It just comes bursting out of them. And he even admits that he didn't even try to channel any of the times that he used the power. So I don't know why he thinks he'll be able to avoid it in the future. I mean, I get that this is a lot to have to adjust to.
Yeah.
So living in denial makes sense. I'm just saying that it's pretty obvious that he's fooling himself. And the people around him that are in on the secret shouldn't be humoring him.
Right.
You know? I mean, it's time for some truth talk. Moraine should stop hiding in the shadows, listening on other people's conversations like some comic book villain, and just have a heart-to-heart with him.
Right. Yeah. Or
You know?
or even Lan. Like Lan knows a secret. Lan's got a relationship with him. Why isn't Lan saying, dude, you got this friend, he's an ogre, he lives in this place where like the power doesn't exist. Come on, man, put two and two together.
Well, I mean, Lan's not saying it because Moraine wants to keep tabs on Rand.
True.
You know, like, Lan isn't going to be like, you should go away.
Yeah, I'm
because Moraine wants to have Rand follow her plan.
Right.
But, like, I mean, Moraine, or, I mean, even Egwene or Nynaeve should be like, okay, so I know that you don't want to channel, and I totally agree. You should try not to, but you're going to. It's just a fact. So prepare yourself for the inevitability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we need to figure out how to keep you safe, but avoiding it isn't actually going to work. So let's come up with a new plan that actually has a chance in hell of succeeding. Maybe. I don't know.
But then I remember it's the Wheel of Time and communicate.
We can't do that.
We can't talk to each other.
Yeah,
what?
No. You're right. I know you're right. All right. So Moraine is listening in on Rand and Egwene, and the book says, quote, "The small gem she sometimes wore in her hair spun and glittered on its gold chain from the ends of her fingers. The faint blue glow faded from the stone, and a smile touched her lips. It had no power in itself, the stone, but the first use she had ever learned of the one power as a girl in the royal palace of Cairhien was using the stone to listen to people when they thought they were too far off to be overheard." So this is one of those little tricks that some Aes Sedai develop before they get to the tower as novices.
Right.
They usually fall into three categories: a way to manipulate people into getting their way, a way to eavesdrop on people, and then on the darker side, a way to hurt people.
Right.
The tower tries to break girls of these habits if they find out about them, but they're often secret tricks that stick with the Aes Sedai, and we'll see more of these pop up throughout the series. So I just kind of wanted to make a note of this one.
Oh, okay. Moraine declares the dragon is reborn. Mm-hmm. As far as cliffhangers go, not too bad. But what made me want to pick up the next book was not the question of if the world would be saved. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know what happens next with these characters. Like, I wanted to know if Lan got his kingdom back. I wanted to see Nynaeve's journey to the tower, and yeah, even Egwene's too. I really wanted to know what the heck Moraine's plans were. Mm. Like, the characters Jordan wrote were really compelling, and I wanted to continue their story.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
We harped a lot on the faults of this book in the last episode, and I just want to come back to, I don't care. Like these characters are just so awesome. I needed to know what happens next.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You know, I was a lot less interested in the action, adventure, fate of the world stuff.
Yeah.
And I cared about what happened to these people. And, you know, that is ultimately a successful story.
That ends The Eye of the World, Book 1 of The Wheel of Time. Join us next week where we wrap up Season 1 of the Pod-Thru, answer all your questions, and let you know what you can expect from Season 2.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe leave us a positive review. It really does help us out. You can tweet us at WhatPodthru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com. Tell us all your thoughts on anything we covered today or ask us any questions for our Q&A episode.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.
Chapter 53 is called The Wheel Turns, and the icon is the Wheel of Time.
That sounds like a soap opera. As the wheel turns.